Hey, what's up? This is Laidback Luke, DJ and producer, and I'm back with a producer vlog. And today, I'm gonna bring it back to basics. Okay, so let's think about this for a minute. So, you've produced an incredible track last night. You thought you were producing an amazing track. You were in the studio, you were making the hours. Last night it sounded incredible. You have a night of sleep and then all of a sudden it sounds like, well, not exactly crickets, but what sounded this big last night sounds this small the next morning. And so I'm here to give you a couple of tips to prevent that. Let me start by telling you that a couple of my best ideas for a couple of my biggest tracks ever, I actually came up with while I was in the toilet. Number one or number two, maybe that's TMI, but even just like zoning out in the shower thinking, oh, you know what, maybe I should grab that synth, or maybe I should make it sound like this, or combine that type of style with this type of style. And what happens there outside of the studio kind of feels like taking the pressure off, where you're not like in this type of pressure cooker needing to come up with an idea, and you're just moseying on around, and all of a sudden the creativity pours in and everything that you were trying to imagine in the studio, outside of the studio, all of a sudden comes to you. And I swear, the key and the gold is within planning for yourself little breaks here and there. You could have it structured and you could say 30 minutes of break after 2 hours of studio, or maybe make it 1 hour of making music and then a half-hour break. And you could do this in intervals. You could set an alarm. I don't necessarily do that, but as an advice, you could set an alarm, and when that alarm goes, you take your half-hour break. Set an alarm for half an hour, go back into your session. I myself often have it where I either render tracks or I freeze tracks in my session that I'll just, start browsing or answer a couple of emails. And then even with those types of like small breaks, these breaks might just be like 5 or 10 minutes tops. You can come back to your session, or you can come back to that synth you're tweaking or that sample you were tweaking and come back with it with a relatively fresh air. And speaking of fresh airs, I remember the sessions I had a long time ago. This must have been at least 15 to 20 years ago, where I had sessions that I called bleeding ears. I remember days and nights in the studio, and this must have been before my first burnout, where I was tweaking a hi-hat for 8 hours long, trying to figure it out, nail the sound, and I would call these sessions bleeding ears because I was just pumping up the volume louder and louder and louder, till at a certain point I literally could not hear it anymore, and it actually felt like my ears were bleeding. Obviously they were not bleeding in real life, thank God, but coming out of there completely defeated, like with my ears almost feeling numb, and obviously hearing this big beep or tinnitus type of thing going on in my ears, not the way to do it. So what also really helps me after that, I found out that varying volume, and I produce the majority of my tracks on headphones, varying the volume really helps with keeping a fresh ear. So, and I've expressed this before on this channel, but if you're hearing this for the first time, this is my method. I will turn the volume up, and I usually produce on living room volume. So I will be turning the volume up a little bit, up until like, okay, this sounds pleasant. I'll be producing, then turn it up a little bit more. I'll produce and I'm like, okay, volume needs to change, turn it up a little bit more. But then at a certain point, when you're over that threshold and it kind of starts fatiguing the ears, I will be turning it down. And I will go the other way. So I'll produce a little bit more, turning it down. Every time I want to turn it up, I'll turn it down. And turn it down a little bit, and turn it down a little bit, up until the moment I'm actually producing on a very low volume. And guess what? This will save your ears, and this will save your ear fatigue as well, because the volume varies. Sometimes I go from really loud to really low, and somewhere in between every couple of minutes, just to be able to hear it properly and just get the bigger scope of the levels and the proper mixing that I'm working on. So if you like what you're hearing right now, and if you like me giving you some advice, make sure to like this vlog right now, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well. let's continue. Okay, but coming back to that feeling of being defeated, because the way I work is I don't like giving up. When I stick into a project, I'm like, I will tweak it until I drop, or I will keep on working on this track or this piece until I get it right and I don't give up. And over the years, this has costed me like tons of, I wouldn't say mental health issues, but feeling of being defeated, feeling of being drained. You are only as good as your last track is what people like saying. I personally think, and I'm talking from experience, that is actually a very toxic sentence. Like, okay, so if I can't produce a track tonight, then, I'm not worthy. Now I'm thinking as an artist, this is probably why Van Gogh, Van Gogh as we say in Dutch, cut off his ear in frustration at a certain point. Well, I don't even know if that's true, maybe Google it. But the struggle of an artist working on a craft or a creative thing and going into that process, I'd like for you to just be able to detach yourself at any given point from it and just take a break. Please know that you are already good enough. The fact that you are working on something, that you are creating something out of nothing is already good enough. The fact that you are expressing yourself, pouring your character and your heart and soul into something, and maybe you won't finish it today, maybe you won't finish it ever. The process, the creativity in the making, that's the real gold. And I want you to remember that. And so you are good enough. Make sure to take breaks. Little breaks here and there, half hour here, half hour there. Currently, I would say I spend about an hour and a half working on a loop. Then I'll take a break, come back to the loop, arrange the full track. This will take me about another 1.5 hours to 2 hours. Take another break and then go into the mastering of the track. Sometimes when a session is good and sometimes when you nail it, obviously you can just continue doing that. But when it comes frustrating, I can advise you just take a break and come back to it later. Give yourself that freedom and give your ears the chance to refresh so you can hear it better, easily and quicker. All right, some tips here for you, not as technical as maybe you want, but something that's really essential as you implement, all of these techniques that you see online from all the amazing technical tutorials online. I hope this will benefit you as well. And now I realize a lot of you have been asking me for a new In My Mind DJ set. I am working on it. I am thinking about it. So make sure to subscribe to this channel and give me a like as well if you like this vlog. And for sure, I will catch you back here on the next one. Until then, L's up.